time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio lawyer and public affairs analyst Jide Ologun and journalist Dari Udufowokan. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Trust. Yes. Wadume, 4 months after, killer soldiers yet to face court-martial. And to the Daily Times now, INEC to partner National Assembly in reforming electoral process. Yakubu Haps on punishment for electoral offenders, says smart card reader has come to stay, must be protected by law. And on the front page of the blueprint, grazing reserves, federal government begins remodeling in Benue, Taraba, 5 others. We are not aware, Benue State government. And finally, on the News Direct, federal government tackles oil firms over high cost of oil production, fall in revenue. African countries like Kenya, Congo, Brazzaville, Uganda, Gabon, and Angola seeking template of Nigeria's local content practice and implementation. Silver. But gentlemen, I'd like for us to look at the story on the front page of the blueprint. Grazing reserves. Federal government begins remodeling the blueprint. Grazing reserves. Federal government begins remodeling in Benue, Taraba, 5 states. There are 7 states basically. And Benue State and I think another state is saying that they are not aware. But when the government talked about these grazing reserves initially, it said that states that were ready and willing to embark on this transformation or this process were the states that they would work with. But now we're seeing that 7 states have been earmarked, and the states are saying they are not aware. I wonder what you make of this.
You know, when the Ruga project was introduced, we had different expressions of resistance, and the federal government quickly suspended.
Yes.
And some of us said then that the word suspension is functional. That means we have not cancelling this, we'll probably come back with a new model. And here we are with a new model. And we have advised globally that ranching is the way to go. But it appears that there are more intentions behind this settlement. And we just want to advise, if the intention is to bring some people to occupy others' territories and deny them the peace that is required for prosperity, eventually it will all end up in poverty and chaos. You see, this excluded effort should be applied to developing the country as a whole. Now we are complaining about our poor performance in the oil and gas sector. Why don't we put money into those areas? In business, we talk about SWOT analysis. Why are we always focusing on our weakness? My question is that if you look at that business, what is the tax that we get from there? What is the revenue that comes to the government? So and my concern also is about the future. If at this moment a regime appears to be pushing a policy, what happens when that regime is out of office? What happens to national interest? And that is just my concern. There are great ways to develop this country, and peaceful coexistence is critical to bringing prosperity to a nation. So
this, for you, is going to be short-lived. It will achieve its purpose at the end of the day?
It's all about a business. Is this the best way to drive the business? Perhaps it's not about business. It's about people coming to take over people's lands. And don't forget what General Danjuma, Theophilus Danjuma, said, that there was a move on ethnic cleansing. Recently, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, a head of state himself, a security expert, said there is an attempt to Fulanize Nigeria. Whether we deny these things, you now look at the elements of our body language and policy implementations, and here we are. And should these things be forced on states under the principles of democracy? My answer is no. But if it's all about business, there are great ways to develop the business potentials of a society.
Let's get Dari's view to this now. From what he has said, the intentions may be right, but the approach by the federal government is not appropriate from the
yes,
13th.
if Barrister Oladeinde has said the intentions are right, I agree with him perfectly. And the approach, I also want to say that it was the late MKO Abiola who said you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. And from what we are seeing, it appears that's what the federal government is trying to do with this new resolve. Because if you look at what the intention is, the intention is gradually going in the direction of what we suggested, and that is ranching. What the government wants to do now is to turn existing grazing reserves in various parts of the country to ranches, where cattle owners can come, breed their cattle at a fee.
But we remember the conflict that took place in some of the states, especially
That's-
Benue and Taraba.
Yes.
Wouldn't it have been the proper way to communicate
That's where
with these states?
That's exactly where I'm going.
All right.
That's the intention. That is what we've been calling for. Let's have ranches. Dedicated and clear-cut ranches where people can do their business. And farmers too will know that these are not areas where you go and farm. One area we have not done much talking about is the fact that some of these farms in question were actually located by farmers in federal government reserves. Perhaps because it has been abandoned over the years, they felt it was free land and they started farming there. And these cattle come knowing fully well, because they've been in the business for years. They know these places. So to avoid these clashes, federal government is saying, we'll make them ranches. That is good intention. But if you are going to go to a state to do that, yes, the reserves belong to the federal government, but these reserves are located
In states.
in a particular state. That is a government.
So what is going to be the implication now?
The implication is it will, if we continue to do things with less information, less orientation than is required, it will continue to kill the policies. Benue State, Plateau States are saying, we are not aware of these plans. What they are aware of is a national plan to
Livestock transformation plan.
the National Livestock Transformation Plan, which the federal government earlier presented. And this state said, yes, we are interested. But there is an alteration to that plan by this going for ranching. You need to carry them along. Now, oh, we are changing what we earlier told you we wanted to come and do in your state. What we intend to do now is develop, transform these reserves into ranches. And this is how we intend to operate it. This is where you come in. This is where the farmers come in. This is where the cattle owners come in. And proper discussion among all stakeholders will help make the policy more attractive.
All right.
And everybody involved would obviously have seen the reason for it.
Quickly, your final words on the way forward now.
You know, the fastest route to prosperity is to have stakeholders' involvement and to have an enabling environment where people peacefully correlate and carry out their businesses. And that should be the focus of any government. If not, all these efforts may end up in crisis and promoted poverty eventually.
All right. Thank you for your contribution on the newspaper review, gentlemen.
Let's take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio lawyer and public affairs analyst Jide Ologun and journalist Dare Odufuwoko. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So let's look at the stories making the headlines this morning, starting off with the News Direct. Federal government tackles oil firms over high cost of oil production, fall in revenue. African countries like Kenya, Congo, Brazzaville, Uganda, Gabon and Angola seeking template for Nigeria's local content, practice and implementation, says Silva. The Daily Trust says Wadume, 4 months after, killer soldier yet to face court-martial. That's in the Daily Trust this morning. The Daily Times is saying here, INEC to partner National Assembly in reforming the electoral process, says Yakubu harps on punishment for electoral offenders, says smart card readers has come to stay, must be protected by law. The blueprint says grazing reserves for federal government begins remodeling in Benue, Taraba, 5 other states. We're not aware, as according to Benue State government. The Daily Sun is saying here, we've uncovered plots to destabilize Nigeria, says DSS. The writer says federal government committed to ending impunity, says Malami. And the Vanguard is saying Apapa gridlock, 2 killed as team truck drivers clash. Mob invades Vanguard premises, gridlock worsens. We're on the trail of errant policemen, says Lagos CP. The Guardian says residents flee town of Kanu's lawyer after policeman's death. And the writer says we want him over murder of 2 police officers. IPOB alleges plot to kill counsel. So we will stick with the story in the Daily Sun. It says we've uncovered plots to destabilize Nigeria, says DSS. Federal government committed to ending impunity, says Malami. Of course, this is a bold header in the Daily Sun this morning, and of course it was in the news from last night now. This uncovering of the plots to destabilize Nigeria, when you heard of the story, what came to mind, gentlemen?
Well, it won't be the first time the DSS will be making, at least this year, this should be like the 2nd or 3rd time of telling us that they are aware of. I am not saying it is not true. We must not say they are exaggerating or they are making false claim. That is not good for national security. However, I am bothered that the first time they said this, they didn't come back to tell us this was how it panned out. Oh, yes, that plot we spoke about, we're able to nab people behind it. These are the people planning it, and this was what they intended doing. This is what we're able to avert. We didn't get to hear that again. Now you're coming to say, one may begin to think that we said this to preempt certain actions.
Okay.
And that's not what an organization of the standing of DSS should be doing in this century. Because if you look at it, in every society, there will be people with dissenting opinion. But it's not everybody that disagrees with it that is planning to take to the streets. So we should also not, by our own statements or actions, give people ideas they hitherto didn't have. But if there are people at this point trying to destabilize the country, I think it is not in the interest of anybody. So the DSS should go beyond just talking. Like I said, this year alone, this should be like the 2nd or 3rd time. We want to see the outcome of this intelligence gathering. We were able to move. We saw the people planning it. We nabbed them. These are the men behind that threat to peace. These were the things they were planning to do. If we had not moved swiftly enough, these are the things that would have happened.
But perhaps this might just be a warning sign to those who allegedly want to destabilize Nigeria.
Okay, so the intention of this is to just warn them and stop them from doing it.
Possibly.
Not to get to the root of what they were planning. That's dangerous, meaning that tomorrow again we'll have the same situation. Okay. We need to go beyond just this. What I'm saying is, since intelligence gathering, offer them the opportunity to know there is a plot. They should go deeper. Since intelligence gathering, offer them the opportunity to know there is a plot. They should go deeper, get the people behind it to serve as deterrent to others, so that next time we don't have people sitting down to just think they could come up with things that will destabilize the country. It's not in anybody's interest to wait until they do it.
All right, let me hear from Jide Ologun.
You know, I must say kudos to DSS, and that is the function of having DSS. And having gotten this intelligence report, what's the next thing? The next thing is to prevent, because we need all the stability in this country now.
How do you prevent what has not been put into action?
Yeah, but they are telling us now they have access to an intelligence report that some are planning to destabilize the country. Then you have to be proactive. In public relations, we talk about crisis management. You can either be proactive or reactive, preventive. But having said that, I want to use the most recent case of the Kogi and Bayelsa election. Before the elections, we were also given revelations that some people were stockpiling ammunition, planning to dislodge, and and these offenses were actually committed. And the Inspector General of Police came out to tell us that the fake policemen overpowered the real policemen. So we don't want these statements just coming out, probably because there is a plot also to deal with a particular class of people in society. So there is this suspicion on the mode of operation of some of these agencies. But when you go into the business environment, there's what you call management by objective. There's also returns on investment. The expected returns on investment concerning the DSS is that there should be peace in this country. This country should not be destabilized. So if they have access to any intelligence information, they should go ahead and prevent it. And beyond that, bring the suspects to book. We are still reading now that Wadume, the kidnapping kingpin, who was allegedly rescued by some soldiers in a matter that involved the killings of some highly trained Nigerian policemen, is yet to face the court martial.
4 months
So we
after.
need to express an effective system to the world to see. So we need all the stability. And finally, I think some of these matters should not even come to the pedestrian level. It's not everything we should bring to the open, and that is the power of intelligence. Before the American government, the FBI went out to arrest the cyber crime suspects. I never read it anywhere that, so we need to be professional. But once again, I say kudos to the DSS, and we look forward to the fact that the stability of this country will not only be sustained, but be enhanced.
Okay, Dario.
I will quickly want to also add that when you have a situation where you suspect that people are likely to want to cause public mayhem, you should also look inward and look at what could be reasons, what could be motivations for them to do this.
You think they might not be aware of that?
When you are now aware of that, then you address it. In Nigeria today, the current state of things gives room for such thinking. If the government is not obeying court orders that borders on releasing certain people that are incarcerated, if the government is not listening to the yearnings of the people in critical areas, if the people are left to fend for themselves where government should be responsible, if the security of lives and properties has dropped to the lowest ebb, and Nigerians feel they are at the mercy of attackers at any point in time, these are incentives to public display of anger. So if you must stop people from displaying these angers, as we must ensure, because we don't need any crisis on our hands now, especially at this period of the year. If we must prevent it, it goes beyond just the DSS issuing threats. The government and those in authority should use this period, this Electoral period, to also address some of these issues. You are driving in traffic in Lagos, and you tap up, and yet you are afraid that your windscreen could be broken and you could be attacked. So, there are so many things for us to address to ensure that Nigerians remain the peaceful people they are known for the world over.
All right. Of course, the Daily Sun is saying we've uncovered plots to destabilize Nigeria. That's according to the DSS, and of course our gentlemen have been talking about this situation. But in all of this now, where does this put us now?
I think, like Mr. Dari brilliantly mentioned, we need good governance. We should not be discussing destabilizing. We should be discussing about people enjoying their stay in the country, and we need to remind the drivers of this process that the primary purpose of government constitutionally is the security of the people, the welfare of the people. Let's create an enabling environment. And the Constitution says that the economy should be managed in a way that we have a balanced and sustained, developmental economy, that wealth is not concentrated in the hands of few, that adequate provisions are made, make the facilities available.
How do we create an enabling environment when we have insecurity on our hands?
It's the responsibility of the government, is that. So who is to ensure security? We are quick to say it's the business of everybody. Yes, I don't have a gun. I like Mr. Dari said, we pay salaries to security guards on our street. We contribute money to clear the drainage. We contribute money to service the transformer. Some people need to dig to ensure their boreholes. So the government must be felt at the positive level, the impact. Because if the reputation, the governance reputation is questionable, the people are likely to ask questions. And when people are asking questions, if that constitutes destabilization, then I wonder why we should have a government in place. So we need a government that is accountable, responsible, and developmental in focus. And that will help us to enjoy the country. And when the citizens enjoy, the government will enjoy. But when there is poverty in the land, when there are infrastructural deficiencies, when people are on edge, definitely, you probably have a time bomb waiting to explode.
All right, Dari, final words now.
Yeah, well, the DSS should continue to gather intelligence, ensure that Nigeria remains in peace, while the government should play its roles to the people. When you make the populace happy, you make the government safe, because power belongs to the people. If the people are forced to ask questions too often, and if their asking question is suppressed too often, then there are those who make peaceful changes impossible, make violent reactions inevitable. It's just unfortunate that when we have violent reactions, it affects all of us, both the governed and the government. And then, no right-thinking Nigeria will look at our country as it is today and think or feel that, yes, let's react violently. We have too much of insecurity on our hands. That any release of pent-up emotion from any angle or any corner of the country can spell doom for all of us. So the DSS should continue with this good work, but like we said before, let us have an idea of who put figures or put faces to these claims once in a while, so that it does not become monotonous. Put faces to these claims.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for talking to us on this issue.
All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the News Direct. Federal government tackles oil firms over high cost of oil production, fall in revenue. African countries like Kenya, Congo, Brazzaville, Uganda, Gabon, and Angola seeking template of Nigeria's local content practice and implementation. Silver. To the front page of the Daily Trust, Wadume 4 months after, killer soldier yet to face court-martial. And on the front page of the Daily Times, INEC to partner National Assembly in reforming electoral process. Yakubu harps on punishment for electoral offenders, says smart card readers have come to stay, must be protected by law. And to the front page of the Blueprint now, grazing reserves. Federal government begins remodeling in Benue, Taraba, 5 others. We are not aware, Benue State government. To the Daily Sun now, we've uncovered plot to destabilize Nigeria, DSS. Federal government committed to ending impunity, Malami. And on the front page of the Vanguard, Apakwa gridlock, 2 killed as task team truck drivers clash. Mob invades Vanguard premises, gridlock worsens. We are on the trail of erring policeman, Lagos CP. And finally, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, residents flee town of Kanu's lawyer after policeman's death. We want him over murder of 2 officers. IPOB alleged plots to kill counsel. Ohaneze condemns move by security agents. Petitions Buhari over checkpoints in Southeast. All right, we'll be looking at the story on the front page of the Daily Times, gentlemen. INEC talking about partnering with the National Assembly on electoral reforms, but majorly is harping on punishment for electoral offenders. The INEC is worried or concerned, if I may use the word, about the level of impunity. It causes grazing impunity that we see in our electoral processes. Despite the level of arrangements they make, they still get to see all of this. I wonder what comes to mind, because there are talks about having electoral offences commission, because they have said that they don't have the capacity to arrest and investigate perpetrators of these offences. I wonder if what changes this will bring to the mix. I'll start with you, Barrister Chideolu.
I'm disturbed, but maybe not surprised, because I don't know what we need again. As we speak here, we have about 11 electoral offenses clearly stated out.
Absolutely.
And for those of us who monitor recent elections in Nigeria, almost all of them were flouted with parties that could be identified. How many have been brought to justice? So you are going back to the National Assembly to make more laws that will not be implemented? So who is to blame here?
So it is not about making laws, it is about
The laws,
implementation.
I think we probably have too many laws in this country. I've said it before. An American president came to office and told the people that, hey, we are going to reduce the number of laws we have as a country, but we will implement the ones that are left. And that is how to sanitize a society.
But
is anybody telling me now that the fake policemen that the Inspector General of Police admitted overpowered the real policemen during the most recent Kogi election, that nobody saw them, they were ghosts, we don't know who they are, or they
couldn't differentiate between who was
or
real
that right
or
now
fake.
the agencies we have to ensure security in Nigeria are paralyzed. But let me just be a bit scriptural this morning. I think we have a challenge in this country which is captured by Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 4. Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 4 says that the righteous is caged in by the wicked. So the wicked prevent judgment from proceeding. If you look at the symptoms we have in this country, I think there are some elements who are even clamping down on the institutions that should sanitize the environment. So why do we have these agencies? If you have laws that you don't implement, who is to blame? I'm still asking the question. Where is the demola of Okota during the ballot box snatcher? I mean, are we now saying we make laws and we go blind about the laws?
They don't have the capacity to make arrests.
Who should bring the capacity? We spent
And
11 trillion naira, my great sister, on subsidy within 6 years in this country. Where will the capacity come from? Where will the capacity come from? It's a matter of prioritization and value system. If we value electoral security and transparency, the world has established a standard. Your elections must be credible, must be fair and transparent and everything. And so where are we going? And right now, we are almost having a militarized and violence, colored electoral processes, and somebody is talking about democracy.
Let's get Darius' view to this issue now. I wonder, INEC saying it doesn't have the capacity to arrest and investigate.
Does it?
Okay.
Doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
And that is why we are seeing this brazen display of impunity?
Well, that is not the reason we are seeing the brazen display of impunity. The reason for that is simply the fact that we are in a country where we don't allow our structures to work. INEC has a role to play. Conduct free, fair, and credible election. By the laws of the land today, INEC, to the best of my knowledge, does not have control over the police. So, if INEC is to conduct a free, fair, and credible election, and we all know it cannot order the CP in each state to do according to its desire. And we all know that the policemen on the streets on election day are not answerable and cannot be controlled by INEC electoral commissioners or resident electoral commissioners in the area under review. Then the issue of security on election day is beyond INEC.
So in essence, the Electoral Offences Commission is a welcome development?
Well, I won't say so until I see so. I'll put it this way. I don't think it is the Electoral Offences Commission that will arrest offenders. The Electoral Offences Commission probably will prosecute arrested offenders when they are arrested. Is it not? It reminds me of a common saying while we were growing up. When we were going to school, if your mother buys you a new shoe or bag, Then we
Write
now
your name.
put sign, mark it, put our name. And then the stubborn fellows among us in school say, this is your new book. You have marked it. We say yes. They say, is it not when you see the book that you see the mark? So, is it not when people are arrested that you prosecute them? What is at stake here is for us to be committed to making our electoral processes credible. And how do I mean? The insurgencies being committed by security operatives during election is more than the ones being committed by INEC officials or even the voters.
How about the political class?
The political class don't go out there to snatch boxes themselves anymore. They don't go out there to stop voting from taking place. They do this using our security men, like we saw in Bayelsa, like we saw in Kogi, and like we have seen in many states in the past. This is beyond the party. See, when we sit here to castigate or condemn a particular political party,
We haven't mentioned
issue, I'm saying it,
yes.
it will not help us at all. When a particular party was in power, it was obvious that they could use the state apparatus of security apparatus to influence things. So if we are seeing that again now, it points to the fact that we need reforms that we need to be in the area of how do we secure our electoral processes.
Right.
If this is what INEC is going to the National
Punishments
Assembly
especially,
for,
yes.
then maybe they are waking up to realize the fact that it is not guidelines that we actually lack. It is implementation of our guidelines that we lack. And if the Electoral Offences Commission would take care of security on election days,
we have to go.
then we are moving closer to where we should be.
All right, Dario Dufa, welcome. We have to leave it at this point. Barrister Jide Olugun, thank you for your time on the newspaper review.